walking tour, Rohnert Park. The exercise bike might work for other people, but after that policeman's wife on Debbie Drive lost control of hers and ran right into the television set face first, I knew it wasn't for me. She broke her jaw, which was a blessing compared to that poor woman on Susie Street who was doing squats and lunges in her kitchen when she tripped and fell into her dishwasher and got stabbed to death by her steak knives. You should never load your knives tip up. I tell that to my girls Bethany and Chelsea all the time. 82% of all accidents happen at home, and the other whatever percents happen within a 10-mile radius of your home, so you're not really safe anywhere. I like to see what's coming at me, so I walk. I leave every morning before dawn or the girls are awake, and the route I take is up Ava to Emily, out to Ellen, and back. It's not very scenic unless you like identical houses with identical front yards, but at least I can't get lost and it does get my aerobics out. The first house I see when I go out my front door is Barbara's. And Barbara's is not identical anymore because she just had the whole front redone for Crystal Lee's wedding. Even the grass is brand new. She ordered one of those lawns they bring in on a truck and unroll, and we all went out and watched it like a movie, and at the end we all bought it. Her rose bushes are new, and so is that grapefruit tree. Leave it to Barbara to plant something in. The best part is that Barbara didn't have to pay for any of it. Her ex-husband Lance paid way all. He said that since Crystal Lee is his only daughter, and probably always will be after his colostomy poor guy, why not do things right? So he gave Crystal Lee a big check, and she went and gave some of the money to Barbara to fix up the house, which has to be a secret from Lance because he doesn't want Barbara to get another cent. Well, Lance thinks Crystal Lee spent it all on the wedding. And she could have, too, the way things cost these days. But I think she saved a little by having it at that Catholic church where the choir boy tried to crucify the homeless man. And she got a deal on the country club, too, because one of her bridesmaids does hair for the pro there. It was a beautiful wedding, I will say that. Crystal Lee's colors were peach and plum, and there was a harvest, and at the end they released a cage of white doves right out on the street. It turned out the priest knew the Pope. He met him in LA or someplace, and he said the Pope said hi, and that made Barbara feel better about the whole thing because Barbara still isn't used to the fact that Crystal Lee married an Italian. Don and I don't see what's the matter with Italians, but Barbara always has to have everything perfect. Barbara's friend Greta Mooney, who used to live next door to her, liked things perfect too. You had to take your shoes off when you went over it. She even had paper toilet seat liners in the bathroom. One day, her husband came home, and she was in her rubber gloves, scrubbing the walls, and he said, "Clean this up, why don't you?" And he took a shotgun off the nail and blew his brains out. And after Greta went back to Germany, or wherever she came from, this other woman moved in, and she was taking a shower one day, and her uterus fell out. So that house is bad luck. And the one across from it probably will be vacant soon, too. You see that big sign on the lawn? I am Earl Miller's neighbor. Jim Parker puts it up every morning, and every night Earl Miller kicks it down. Jim and Earl used to be best friends. They both like electric trains, and they bought a pool table together. Now, no one knows what happened. All of a sudden, these signs are going up. For a good time, call Earl Miller's wife. And then the number, the real phone number, and she got the police up. You'd think people would try to get along, but Bethany's new boyfriend, RT, says that can't happen because human nature hasn't evolved since the cave age. RT has a tattoo of Fred Flintstone on his forearm, so I guess he knows, but Don and I have our fingers crossed that Bethany will break up with him soon anyway. That lady over there says she wouldn't care who her daughters go out with. She swears she gets along with everyone. Oh yes, she's so tolerant. She loves the world. She's always saying she wants more of an ethnic mix. How we're so narrow in our world vision here. She used to be married to a Jewish fellow, and the story I heard was that he was molesting their own daughter, and the girl went along with it until she found out how much prostitutes charge. The minute she started asking him for money, he stopped. The girl who works at the new nail place in the mall told me about that. And she told me about the man in that window over there. Don't look. He's newly paraplegic. They think it's Lyme disease, but they don't know. They have to do more tests. His wife got him a puppy to cheer him up, but when he was taking a nap one afternoon, the puppy chewed one of his toes off. Well, he didn't feel a thing because no nerves, right? And he didn't even know it was gone until his wife said, "Hey, what's that dog got in its mouth?" We had to put the puppy to sleep because once they taste blood, they change. And if you think that's sad, the girl next door, she was a year ahead of Chelsea, and she was running out of study hall, and she didn't look where she was going, and she bumped into a boy running the other way, and their heads hit, and she died instantly, but he was fine. I always think of him, the guilt he must feel every time he washes his face. And I think of that girl's parents, too. They were best friends with that other couple whose baby was stolen by a cult. Well, they still don't know what cult. For a while, they thought it was that cult that pounds babies into hamburger in the name of the devil, and then they cook the baby and they eat it. That's why the police can never find any evidence. But Dawn says that cult is only in Berkeley, thank God. And we're pretty sure we had a cult living in that pink house for a while. It was a very strange arrangement. 6 adults, and they were always dressed up. Even when they washed their cars, the women wore high heels, and they didn't talk to anyone except Heather Linden when she went around with that petition to stop Dr. Wertz from adding on to his garage. Heather is still mad about Dr. Wertz being the one to answer her Match.com ad, but Dawn and I have talked about it, and we think it makes sense. Heather and Dr. Wertz are alike. She's high-strung, and he is too. Chelsea and Bethany told us he ripped a girl's braces off a whole year early because her father missed a payment on his bill. Also, frankly, Heather should know better. She's been fooled before. Last year, this guy from Harmony.com told her to meet him at Chevy's and he'd be the one in the cowboy hat, and she turned up and he had a cowboy hat all right, but he was a complete and utter midget. About 3 feet tall. And it was a cowboy hat from a toy store. Anyway, Heather writes this new profile saying she wants a kind, caring, professional man who's over 6 feet tall. And this man writes back and says he's 6 feet too, so they exchange photos. And Heather's is on a ski slope in sunglasses, and his is on a sailboat in sunglasses. So they decide to meet, and they take one look at each other and start screaming right there in the restaurant. The thing is, Heather and Dr. Wertz hate each other. They lived next door to each other without speaking for 4.5 years. She complains to the police about his leaf blower, and he poured Clorox on her rock garden. The only thing they've ever agreed on is that new fence. Dawn says it's the strongest fence in the neighborhood, but it's not the tallest. The tallest is that one over there where the Mormon lady found the 10 cats hung from the trees. She had just climbed up a ladder to put seed in her bird feeders, and there they were. Every cat that had been missing from the neighborhood for the last 6 weeks, tied up with fishing line and hanging from branches, and we had to chip in to hire a grief counselor for the kids they belonged to. It was even worse than the time someone went into the Finney's backyard and shot their Shih Tzu with a bow and arrow to make it stop barking. Sickest thing that's ever happened in those trees, though, is the rapist who tried to catch the 7-year-old girl by dropping dollar bills along the sidewalk. Now, she followed the the trail until she got into the trees and he grabbed her. Luckily, she remembered to scream like they teach you in school these days, and she ran into the street, and this is the worst part, because no one stopped to help her until her own father drove by on his way home from work, and the first thing he said was, "Where'd you get all that money?" We're just too used to crazy, as Don says. I remember that lady on Delacorte who started out giving regular garage sales once a month, like other people, and then something happened. She got addicted. She had to have them all the time. Pretty soon she was selling things like her kids' bunk beds when they were in school, and their ferret cages with the ferrets still in them, and her husband's guns and some of his power tools. I think she even tried to sell the Jeep before they got her into treatment. I always think of her carrying all of her living room furniture out to the street by herself every morning, but of course she was homeless. Not all of them are. I know for my own peace of mind, I won't take a shower when I'm alone in the house. When Dawn's at work and the girls are at school, I won't even go upstairs. I just put the folded laundry on the landing, and when everyone's home, I carry it up and make a lot of noise, so if anyone's in the closet, they have plenty of time to get out. They never did catch that rapist, after all, and there are plenty of others just like him out there. I always think of our pastor, ex-pastor, that is. Even Dawn won't go to his church anymore. Here he was, this prophet pastor, always holding prayer circles to cure people of their homosexuality. And all the time he had AIDS and a whole double life, like that young banker in Santa Rosa who drowned the Congo in the hot tub while his wife was on a Girl Scout overnight with their 2 little daughters. Dawn misses church. I know, and being an usher, and I hope he finds something soon because he's been in a terrible mood since Crystal Lee's wedding. At first, he said it was a toothache, but finally, he told me the truth. Lance didn't recognize him in the reception. Dawn has put on some weight lately, but he hasn't changed that much. Lance is the one who's changed. I don't know what he's done, but he's gotten so handsome. Maybe it's the suffering he's been through, but even Bethany and Chelsea noticed he looked better than he did when he lived across the street from us. He was wearing a royal blue tux at the wedding, and if there was a bag inside, I couldn't smell it. I'm usually sensitive to things like that. But he didn't talk to Barbara, of course, but did dance with Crystal Lee, and they looked so sweet together, I wanted to cry. The other one who danced was this girl, Shandora, who knows Crystal Lee from modeling school, and what she did was dirty dancing. I don't know what else you would call it. I haven't seen it outside the movie, but that's what it was. And there was this one man who started dancing with her. He was doing it too. I mean, he was ready to eat her up right there on the dance floor, and she was ready to let him. When the band took a break, they went outside toward the cars, and Dawn and I looked at each other and thought, uh-oh. And then she ran in, and the man was right behind her, and he was even drunker than before, and he was going to get her. I mean, the Italians had to hold him back. He was really going to get her right in front of everyone. We all made a circle around her until they locked him in a car. Then Barbara took Shandora home with her, and she slept on Barbara's bathroom floor. I know that doesn't sound so great, but you should see Barbara's bathroom since she had it redone with Lance's money. And Shandora had a blanket near the bidet in case she needed it, and I guess she did because the carpet was being steam cleaned when I went over to have coffee with Barbara last week. And that's when Barbara told me this thing. This really strange thing. She said that after she got Shandora home, she called Heather Lemon, and Heather came over, and the two of them examined Shandora to see if she had sex with the man. I mean, they examined her. They took off her clothes and pried her legs open and looked up inside of her with a flashlight. Shandora was passed out the whole time. But Heather's a paralegal, and Barbara said if they found any sign of sexual activity, sperm or what have you, they were going to sue that man for date rape. Well, lucky for him, they didn't find anything. Shandora is still over there in Crystal Lee's old room, and Barbara said she's thinking of moving in permanently. I wouldn't like someone like that living in my house. Also, I think, what is rape? Isn't what Barbara and Heather Lemon did to her rape? I'm puzzled by the whole situation. Yesterday, I said to Dawn, if someone examined me, they'd find out I haven't had sex since 1998, but I don't think Dawn took the hint. He was reading this diet book Bethany and Chelsea gave him for Father's Day. He wants to do this new one. It's all meat and potatoes, nothing else, which is basically all he eats anyway. I mean, he's in a rut. And I guess I'm in one too. Every morning, I wake up early and lie in bed worrying that nothing will ever happen except I'll get older and the girls will grow up and go away, and Barbara will always have better things than I do, and Dawn will die from high cholesterol, and I'll be all alone. And then, I can't help it. I imagine Dawn's funeral and what I'll wear and how Lance will stay after the service and say he's always been in love with me, and I'll have to think, do I really want to get married again to someone with physical problems? But once the sun's up and I'm on my walk, I forget my worries, and by the time I pass this house, this is where the girl lived whose breast implants froze when she went on the ski trip, and that house, that's where they had to hire an exorcist because the television turned on to Jeopardy every day. Oh, I'm so